Wild expanses with animals separated by a strict hierarchy, the only rule that says that the strongest survives. There is a hunter, and there is a victim. The Lord gave sharp teeth to some, and fast legs to others. But cornered by the whole pack, no legs will help anymore. The world in which they live is no different from the human one. Our hero found himself in a similar situation. Actions take us to one of the classes. All bloody and beaten, the main character, lying on the floor, realizes his helplessness. Standing in front of him, his abusers constantly mock him, ordering him to stand up. Raising his head, the main character saw how the main offender spat in front of him, ordering him to lick it off. The hero understood that for hooligans, he was just another way to have fun. All he wanted to do was just die. His thoughts were interrupted by a blow to the head from the leader, who repeated his order again. His name was Jae Galwa. He said not to build a drama and get down to business. In response, the hero only apologized, in response to which Galva was surprised because he did not know that dogs can talk. Under the mockery, he began to lick what was on the floor. At first, the hooligans were surprised because they did not expect that he would actually do it, but soon, having recovered, they continued to mock the guy. Satisfied with this arrangement, Galva decided to present a gift to the hero by pouring some substance on his head. A moment later, the hero saw something white falling off his hair in chunks. It was spoiled milk. According to the bully, he kept it for 2 whole months specifically for such an occasion. The stench was concrete. The hero, breathing like a dog, continued to lick this disgusting substance from saliva and rotten milk. At this time, he continued to feel the gazes of his classmates, full of joy that this time they were not the target of the hooligans. He wondered why this was happening to him, what he had done to deserve such an attitude. After it was over, he went to the toilet to clean himself up. Picking up a stationary knife, in the end, he decided that it was better to die than to continue to endure all this. After making a small incision, he suddenly stopped and threw the knife aside. All he wanted then was that no matter who, even if it was the devil himself, took him away from this damn hole. A mysterious figure was watching all this from the neighboring roof. After the end of classes, near the exit of the school, Juno, that was the name of the main character, was intercepted by one of the hooligans, named Kim Jun. Grabbing and hugging him, he asked Juno for some money for an internet cafe because, according to him, he was broke. In response, Juno said that he had no money because he gave it to Galwa and asked for forgiveness. Kim Jun didn't like it. He took the hero to the alley. Kim Jun said that he probably looked kind, since the hero decided to refuse him. In response, the hero said that everything was wrong and that he would bring money. But before he could finish, he was kicked right in the face. After that, seizing the hero by the hair, Kim Jun asked what he thought of himself and hit the hero's head against the wall. The hero suffered blow after blow. When Kim Jun finally decided to smoke, Juno began to apologize, saying that he was sorry and he made a mistake. After that, Kim Jun threw the cigarette on the floor, ordering the hero to put it out. Bringing it to his hand, Juno was about to do it, when suddenly Kim Jun stopped him and told him to do it with his tongue. Out of surprise, Juno even asked him again, which made Kim Jun think that he hadn't learned his lesson enough yet. He already wanted to hit the hero, but he said he would do it. Bringing a smoldering cigarette to his mouth, Juno only thought what a loser he was, and why he had to live like this, why they just didn't leave him alone, and whether they knew how much it hurt. He thought that the pain he went through should be experienced by his abusers. Then he touched the smoldering side of the cigarette to his tongue. Suddenly he realized that he didn't feel any pain from it. At the same moment, Kim Jun screamed, clutching his mouth with his hands. Realizing that this was a good moment, Juno ran away. When he came home, he realized that he still did not feel pain. Suddenly, his thoughts were interrupted by a small red creature appearing in front of him. It asked if the hero wanted to know why this happened. From horror and surprise, the hero shouted who he was. In response, the creature asked to calm down and said that it was here to help him. The hero asked with surprise. The creature said that it was the one who gave Juno the strength and was going to pull him out of this hole. He introduced himself as the archdevil, Mephistopheles, and asked if Juno wanted to play a game with him. In response, Juno asked what Mephistopheles was doing here. He replied that it was Juno who called him. At the same time, in the alley, Jun, smoking a cigarette, was trying to understand what happened at that moment. Returning to the main character, he was surprised that he was endowed with some kind of power, and asked what its meaning was. Mephistopheles explained that if Juno hurts himself by thinking about the person he hates, then this person will experience all the pain instead of him. Also, he cannot die from this ability. But everything has a price. Every time he uses it, he will lose a certain amount of his own life. Shouting that it wasn't fair, Juno grabbed Mephistopheles. In response, he said that even in this case, the hero will use this ability, because he is a loser, and this is his only chance to turn from prey into a hunter. After a little thought, Dunho made a decision. He doesn't care what happens to his life, he just wants revenge. Satisfied with the same answer, the demon snapped his fingers, and a mark appeared on the wrist of the main character, which is proof of their deal. Every time the hero uses his power, the mark will try to absorb his body. Also, he added that the label will only be valid for 30 days. After thinking a little, the hero decided to ask what would become of him if he spent his whole life. Mephistopheles replied that in this case, the hero would die, and his soul would pass into the possession of a demon. Then he disappeared. The hero, after looking at the mark a little, smiled. The next day, at school during recess, Jun approached him. He told the hero to come to the roof during lunch. During lunch, the hero climbed the stairs to the roof. Jun was already waiting for him there. He was surprised because he thought Juno would get cold feet and not come. He started the conversation because he doesn't understand what he did to him yesterday. In response, Juno said that he got what he deserved. Enraged by such a response, Jun immediately hit Juno with his foot, so much so that he flew several meters away. Kneading his fists, Jun ordered Tom to stand up, after which, shouting that he would kill him, he rushed to attack. Juno wasn't going to put up with any more of this. He was going to make the bullies pay for everything they did to him. Taking out the knife he had hidden earlier, Juno plunged it into his leg. Writhing in pain, Jun asked what he had done. In response, Juno, with a smile on his face, only asked what happened to him and whether he tripped over a stone. Soon he asked what it was like to feel this pain on yourself. Jun understood that this was not imagination, the pain was real, and that in the end, it could end badly for him. He rushed at Juno, shouting that he should not underestimate him, simultaneously knocking the knife out of his hands and knocking him to the ground, after which he begins to strangle. But Juno did not lose his head, and bit his tongue, from which Jun let him go, and fell to the ground writhing in pain. Juno stood up and calmly took his knife, then walked towards Jiangjun. In a panic, he started shouting at him not to come up, that he was mocking him only because others were doing it, and in general it was all a mistake. Juno was not satisfied with this answer, and he began to stab himself with a knife blow after blow. Jun was tormented by writhing in pain until he soon stopped moving. Juno, happy with this outcome, said that he no longer needed an apology from Jun. Suddenly, from behind him, he heard a cry. Turning around, he saw Li Donghu, nicknamed Todd. He was a dwarf with a hideous appearance, so also terribly clothed and weak. For all 18 years of his life, he was bullied by someone. That day he was also on the roof, and was about to commit suicide, when he suddenly heard a piercing scream. Looking around the corner, he realized that it was Kim Jun begging for mercy. From that moment on, he watched what was happening. Realizing the situation he was in, Juno quickly began to think what he should do. Having come to the conclusion that most likely Donghu will report what he saw to the police, he has already decided to kill him. But suddenly Donghu himself approached him and called him the savior of all the oppressed, after which he began to thank God for answering his prayers. The actions take us to some alley. The demon runs over it in a hurry. After that, a hand appears out of the air and instantly wipes the demon from the face of the earth. After that, we see a young man with a cross-shaped mark on his arm who killed the demon. After a successful hunt, he decided to rest and sat down near the wall. Looking at the same hand with the mark, he thinks that every day the pain is getting stronger and stronger. Suddenly, a young man in a yellow jacket appears with a banana in his hands, calling out to Sihyun, the guy with the tag, by name. He asks what happened and whether he used force. Without saying anything in response, Lee Sihyun just looked at the guy and then turned away. This infuriated the guy, and he asked why he was looking at him like that, and why he was in uniform despite not going to school. After that, they left. The guy in the yellow jacket asked how long Sihyun was still going to work as an exorcist, and whether it seemed to him that it was time to end this work. Sihyun replied that it was his punishment, after which he asked what about school. He replied that it is not far away and starts tomorrow, after which he receives a warning from Sihyun to stay away from bananas at school, and he calls him a monkey. The guy in yellow was pissed off. Returning to Juno, he sits in the office thinking about yesterday. He was lucky because Donghu considers him the savior of the oppressed, so don't worry about it. Turning his head to the right, he notices one of the hooligans mocking Todd. He feels sorry for him, but he can't do anything. When suddenly his classmate distracts him from his thoughts. She apologized for scaring him and asked him to let her know by tomorrow if he was going on a school trip, saying that everyone except him had already signed up. Then she said goodbye and went to the other girls. It was Lee Yoon-hee, the only person in the class who cared about Juno. She is beautiful, gets good grades, and is generally a great person. She's also one of the most popular girls at school. Juno thought it couldn't be that a girl like that would be interested in him, because he was an outcast. The school day has come to an end. On the way home, Juno wondered how long he should live like this, when he would be able to live normally. He also noticed that after the first use, the mark began to capture his body. Suddenly, Glawa's voice rang out. He ordered Juno to approach him in the alley. Juno had completely forgotten about him. He was thinking what to do, approach or run away. A little hesitating, he decided that one way or another he should meet him, and this time the hero will show him that he is not a weakling. Gwalwa said that yesterday during lunch, Jyeongjin said he would take care of Juno, but he hasn't seen him since. He asked why there wasn't a single scratch on Juno. At that moment, Juno was only thinking that the moment had come for his revenge, and that in order to get a knife, all he needed was to just naturally raise his hand. He forgot that he had not answered Gwalchwa's question, which immediately caused him to be kicked in the stomach. He asked himself why he couldn't do anything now, what was going on. He was trembling all over with fear. He tried again to pull out the knife, but in vain. Glokpa, again not waiting for an answer, hit him, and then again. Threatening to break his neck if he did not answer again, Galva loomed over the hero. Juno repeatedly tried to use force, but all in vain. Finally reaching for the knife, he decided to cut himself on the arm to use the ability on the eye. When he saw the knife, he immediately jumped to the ground. What was the hero's surprise when he felt pain instead of Galpa? Glawa said if he wanted to hit him, then he should have done it normally, after which he put out the cigarette on Juno's face. Then he started beating him. At that time, the henchman standing behind Glokva was glad that he was not his opponent. The beating would have continued on, if not for the appearance of the guy in yellow and Sihyun. Galwa was surprised to see the latter. He asked what brought Sihyun here, because he spent the whole last year in MIA. After Sihyun called Galwa by name, he ordered him to shut up, otherwise he would kill him. The guy in yellow asked if Sihyun knew this guy, to which he replied that only a little. After that, the guy in yellow ordered Galwa and his henchman, whom he called a fatty, to get behind Juno. The henchman's name was Jang Somu. He specialized in judo. He insulted the guy in yellow by calling him a monkey. He was about to go into battle, when suddenly he was stopped by Shiohuan, with a warning to stay away from them. But after a few more insults, the guy in yellow still couldn't stand it. He moved right in front of Somu in the blink of an eye and gave him an uppercut. He didn't even have time to block it, he didn't even have time to react to it, and soon he was already lying on the ground. The guy in yellow was called Wijino. He specialized in kickboxing. After that, Soma got up and wanted to continue the battle, but Galva suddenly said to stop. Dissatisfied with this arrangement, Soma tried to convince him, but to no avail. In the end, they left and only 3 remained. As soon as Juno came, he saw 2 guys he didn't know standing right above him, which scared him. After that, Juno said that this is not the way to thank your rescuers. Juno apologized and thanked the rescuers. After that, Sihyun said that he had a bad feeling about Juno. He, realizing that everything is not going very well, decides to run away. Soon we see Mephistopheles again, who again watched everything and said that the game is getting more interesting. Evening, Juno's apartment. When he got home, he started calling Mephistopheles. He reappeared from the wall, asked why he was needed. Juno said he wanted to find out the reason why his ability didn't activate, insulting the demon along the way. He, in turn, lengthened his arm, grabbed the neck and easily lifted the hero, simultaneously explaining that he was just a toy for him. Soon he explained that the forces can only be activated when you feel hatred for someone, and in a fight with Galva, he felt not only her, but also fear. Realizing his helplessness, the hero sat down near the wall and folded his hands cross on cross, bowed his head. Mephisto approached him and said that the survivor wins the battle, and he wants to choose whether he wants to be the only one who will remain standing, or a dead loser. Leaving the hero alone with his thoughts, he disappeared. At the same time, Galwa put Soma in place, lifting and pressing against the wall. As soon as he finished, Soma got a call on the phone, and after hearing what they heard on it, they immediately went to school. On the roof, they found Kim-jun lying there covered in urine for the 2nd time. Soma started asking the other hooligans how it happened. In response, he only heard that when they came, he was already like that. After that, Soma ordered the removal of Kim-jun. When he finished smoking, Galwa threw the butt right into the puddle of urine under Kim-jun. The next day, Kim-jun did not show up at school. It was explained to everyone that he had fallen into a coma for an unknown reason. One-on-one, like a fire, more and more rumors began to appear that someone from the Galpa group was beaten not just by someone, but by a rival group with them. They only said that it was possible to talk about the power of Galpa, that perhaps it was just an empty sound, but he himself appeared to some groups and dispelled their misconceptions. Their cry was heard even in the main character's classroom, but the teacher came and everyone quickly forgot about them. He said that from today a new student will be studying with them. After that, one of the girls asked if he looked good. The teacher, looking at her skirt, replied that it was fine. After a moment, Juno's face twisted in surprise. The newcomer was his acquaintance, Gino. He greeted everyone, after which he said that he loves bananas, and that he does not like being compared to a monkey. Looking around the classroom, he noticed how Jinho was sitting on the last desk. He shouted that he was surprised that Juno was also in this class. At that moment, Juno himself was only thinking about Gino stopping talking to him. The whole class started discussing it. After that, Gino found out the name of the hero. Soon the teacher left the classroom, telling the students to prepare for the lesson. After that, Gino approached the hero and said that he was glad to meet him, simultaneously asking why he ran away yesterday. Noticing that the class continued to talk about them, Juno asked Gino to stop talking to him. At that time, Soma was walking down the corridor. He heard a familiar voice from the classroom he was passing by. Not understanding why he should ignore Juno, Soma decided to turn around and saw a guy in yellow. At that time in class, Gino said that he was not going to ignore the hero just because he was an outcast. Suddenly, he pushed Juno, and he flew into the nearest wall. Juno realized that Gino wanted to protect him from Soma's blow. Standing over Gino, he was glad that he would be able to cheer himself up after he was beaten. Getting up, Gino, as before, made a dash for Soma. He said that one trick would not work on him twice and rushed forward himself, intending to grab Gino, but he dodged at the last moment. Gino was surprised at how slow Soma was, and asked how he was going to take revenge. After learning about what was happening, students from other classes began to come to the office. They were all surprised by the speed of Gino, who easily dodged every blow from Soma. Angered by what had happened, Soma decided to strike with all his might, but Gino dodged at the last moment, counterattacked him right in the face, which caused the latter to fall to the ground. Trying to get up, Soma realized that he could not do it. Gino said that he struck right on the jaw and asked Soma to surrender. The latter, kneeling on his knees, only heard the rest of the students mocking him. He ordered them to shut up and, filled with anger, decided to strike the last blow. But all in vain. Like last time, Gino easily dodged, after which he landed a kick from a U-turn right in the jaw of Soma, from which he passed out. Everyone could not believe what was happening and rejoiced at the victory. Juno couldn't believe that a guy the same height as him could deal with Soma so easily. Some time after the defeat, Soma beat the wall in anger, realized how shamefully he lost and decided that it was all Juno's fault. After that, he decided to deal with him, remembering that the latter goes to drawing. After school, on the way home, Gino caught up with Juno. He asked why Gino was chasing him, asking him to back off. The answer he got was that Juno, the only person he knows in their class. Noticing the strange mark, he grabbed Juno's hand. He wondered if he could be the same as Sihian. Juno, pulling his hand out of Gino's hands, began to run. In the evening, Juno went to a drawing lesson at the art academy. He spent the whole lesson thinking about what his teacher noticed. After the lesson, he came up and asked if something had happened to Juno. He replied that nothing had happened. The teacher said that Juno can lie to him as much as he wants, but his drawings tell a different story, and then added that he can trust him, and he is all attention. Juno told him what had happened. The teacher did not take Juno's words about making a deal with the devil seriously, blamed it all on overwork. Juno, not happy with this conclusion, decided to prove his words by showing a mark on his hand. In response, the teacher said that he did not see any mark. Juno realized that maybe others couldn't see her, and wondered how Gino saw her then. The teacher at that time decided to tell that during the school he was also bullied, and he was visited by the same thoughts as the main character. He said that he forgave his abusers, even though it took him enough time, and told Juno to reconsider his views on revenge. After that, he added that Juno's drawings are getting better every day, and soon he will be able to surpass the teacher. He left art school and went home. Along the way, he recalled the teacher's words about forgiving offenders, and thought that he might be mistaken in choosing revenge. Over time, he noticed a man walking behind. Juno initially thought that he was being chased, but then calmed himself down by deciding that it was just his imagination. But even for a few minutes, the man continued to follow him. He decided to speed up to get away from the pursuer and noticed that he ran after him. When he turned the corner, thinking that he had managed to break away, he breathed a sigh of relief. But suddenly they grabbed him from behind and brought some kind of rag to his face. After a moment, he began to lose consciousness. He was kidnapped.